Welcome to the Waffle Flower channel. This is It's in the Details. I'm Nicole, and today I'm going to be sharing this Little Mermaid shaker card, and I am using the Little Mermaids stamp set as well as the Lacy Layers 2 dies to create my shaker. I'm going to start by creating the background. I'm going to take two of the Lacy Layers 2 dies and use a little post-it tape to tape them on to some watercolor cardstock here. Gonna just nest the smaller one inside of the larger one. This is gonna actually give me 3 different frames. I'm gonna run that back and forth through my Big Shot a couple times. I wanna make sure I get a really nice crisp die cut image. I will also cut a solid background just using that large scallop shape. That's going to be the back of my shaker. I'm going to remove that teeny tiny thin frame, and then I'm going to apply some Blueprint Sketch and Peacock Feathers Distress inks to these 2 pieces. So I kind of want it to be a seamless transition between the 2 colors, plus I want them to be on the outside border and then the inside scallop rectangle. The inside piece, the smaller solid rectangle, is actually going to be the inside of the shaker where the scene is going to take place. This is kind of my underwater scene here. And the outside frame is going to be the frame of the shaker. Once I have those colored, I'm going to spritz them with water from a distress sprayer, and then go ahead and blot them dry with a dry paper towel. And if it's a little too white, like I felt like it wicked away a little too much of the ink, I'm going to go back over them gently with my ink blending tools just to add a little bit more of that ink color in. I'm also going to trim down a piece of transparency to fit behind that large scallop frame. Then I'm going to lay out the images that I'm going to be coloring on my Misty stamp positioning tool, and I'm going to stamp these several times. And I like to use the Misty so that I can stamp them one on top of another at least 2 or 3 times to get really nice crisp black stamped images to color in. I'm also going to need some additional fish. I'm going to need 5 total, and a couple of pieces of the seaweed as well to build my underwater scene. I am coloring the fish with a combination of yellow, orange, and red inks. These are all Copic markers. The colors I'm using are shown across the bottom of the screen. I love the way the orange and the yellow look together, and then the addition of a few little red dots just kind of helps bring the whole thing to life. I'm going to color all 5 of those fish exactly the same way. For the seaweed, I am kind of doing a lighter and darker look, so one half of the seaweed is lighter than the other. Kind of blending that out and then going back in with my darkest, the YG17, and drawing that little midline back in. I will dress these up even more with a white gel pen a little bit later in the video. Next, I'm going to move on to the coral. I'm going to use a couple of shades of red, R24 and R27. This is going to add a nice little pop of color. I tried to kind of keep everything different colors so that there was lots of color in my underwater scene, with the orange and yellow fish, the green seaweed, red coral, and then my little monkey mermaid here is going to have a really pretty blue mermaid tail. I'm going to color in my monkey with some shades of brown, E40, 43, 44, and 47, with a little R00 for the cheeks. Just blend all of that out real good. Get my color built up. Lighter for the face and for the tummy area, and then the hair, or the rest of the fur rather, is going to be a little bit darker. Just build that color up until I get the shading exactly the way I want it to look. I love that it has a little clamshell in its hair instead of a flower. I think that's a cute little touch. And I did end up stamping another clamshell later. I did not include that in the video to just add in the underwater scene. There's an individual little shell, and I'm going to color it exactly the way I color this one with some red-violet colors and even a little red to deepen and darken that up just a tiny little bit. The fishtail, I am using some blue colors. 66, 69 are the two main colors for the fishtail. Once I kind of have that all blended and the way I want it to look, I maybe need to darken up a few little areas here with my B69. I'll blend it out with B66. I'm going to go in with B60. Originally, I thought I'd use the colorless blender, but the B60 is light enough and has enough colorless blender in it that when you touch it to that area you've already colored, you can get some really great texture. So that's how I got that awesome mermaid look there. Then I'm just drawing out some lines in the fishtail itself, which is going to remove some of the ink, and going back in with some blue-green colors, and then maybe a little more B60 to lighten that a little bit. The little ruffle around the waist is going to be in shades of blue-green, 45 and 49. I'll move on to the rock. That's going to be some different shades of brown than I used for the monkey. Just some nice neutrals here. There's quite a bit of color going on now that I've got everything else colored. And then I will die cut all of these images with the coordinating Little Mermaids dies. I like to kind of lay everything out, make sure everything is going to fit like I think it was going to. This is also going to give me a great idea of where I can stamp my greeting. So I'm going to stamp the bubbles first from the Little Mermaid stamp set. I am using the same colors of distress ink that I used for the background, the Blueprint Sketch and Peacock Feathers inks. Make sure I get all of my bubbles done here before I move on. I am going to remove now some of that ink from inside the bubbles by adding just a little bit of water to each of the bubbles. This is again going to wick away that distress ink. Distress ink is so great because it works so well and reacts with water. So I'm just kind of picking up some of that water now with a drier paintbrush, and you can see it removes some of that ink. I'm going to go in and add some detail now to some of these stamped images. So a white glaze pen to the seaweed. This is where I'm kind of going along that darker line that I drew in there with my darkest green Copic marker. Adding some fun little dot detail. Dress up all of these colored pieces. I'll do that for both of the seaweed pieces. I've also gone in and added a little bit of black glaze pen to the eyes. I'm going to draw in some little white lines there on the mermaid tail. And once the black glaze pen is dry on the eyes, I'm going to go back in and add those highlights with my white pen. It's just going to make those eyes pop. Again, some little white dots on the clamshells. Dresses up everything so pretty. I'm going to take some white StazOn ink now, lay my transparency piece over the top so I can kind of gauge exactly where that greeting needs to go. So I'm going to line it up, ink up my greeting that reads, "You are fantastic," and stamp that right there on the transparency. That way my greeting is going to be on the front of the shaker and not on the inside. So the shaker material is never going to cover up the greeting itself. I'm taking some glossy accents and adding dabs of it to the bubbles and the eyes on the fish and the eyes on the monkey. This is just yet one more step that's really going to make all of the eyes pop. Plus, I love using glossy accents for bubbles. So once I have all of that done, I need to set this aside to completely dry. To put the frame together now, I simply flipped over the frame and that skinny little frame and put some nice strong adhesive, and that's going to hold those two together, and then place my transparency piece on the back. The shaker frame itself is going to be too narrow for my foam, so I'm going to cut it in half to get the most out of it, and I'm doubling it up on all four sides. And you want to make sure it butts up next to each other so none of that shaker material can escape from the shaker. Once I have all four sides with foam adhesive, I'm going to take a powder tool and run that around that inside edge to help keep the shaker material from sticking. And then before I put anything in there, I need to go ahead and build my inside frame. So I'm simply going to take all of my die cut pieces and build my scene. Layer all of these fun little designs, and it builds the perfect underwater scene. I just love it. I think it's so super cute. Gonna just kind of line it up, make sure everything's looking good here. Place my seaweed and coral along the right side. Get all my fish where they need to go. I'm using some Zotz Bling glue dots to attach any of these smaller pieces. Once I have that, I'm going to take my background panel now, and I like to die cut the background panel for my shakers because it's always the exact same size as the frame. Attach that there. Here's that other little clamshell that I added. And then I'm going to fill my shaker with some sparkling clear seed beads. I love these because I think they kind of look like bubbles. And I want my shaker to be fairly full, so there's lots of interaction going on for the recipient. I'll peel off the backing paper for the foam tape and then flip over my background and take it to the shaker itself. Then I'll just flip that over, attach that whole shaker to a side fold card base, and there is my Little Mermaids shaker card. Shaker cards are one of my favorite ways to create an interactive element for a card. Thanks for joining me today. For more product information, please visit waffleflower.com. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.